Hello everybody and welcome back to the No More Heroes walkthrough. It's time to begin the extras! And what exciting thing awaits us in this first part of the extras? Well, it's looking at all of the trading cards. Because this is an excellent thing. It's perhaps going to be slightly dull for the first age or so, because we're going to be looking at all of the Mask of the Legendary Wrestler cards. And then we get to all of the concept art, which is actually really cool. So, the way that this all works, I mean, I mentioned it during the main walkthrough, but I will repeat it here. And also go slightly more into what the whole trading card game thing going on here is. So basically, all you need to do to get these is collect them. There are two sets of trading cards. There are the Mask of the Legendary Wrestler set and the Design Materials set. The Mask of the Legendary Wrestler set is available to you on your first run of the game. And for each card that you get, you will get that wrestler's mask on Travis's wall. And, but then the second set does not appear until you play New Game Plus. At which point there will be new cards in the levels, and also there are an absolute huge amount of cards dotted around Santa Destroy. Basically, cards 91 through 135, and cards 148 through 150. There are a lot of cards, let's put it that way. Now, throughout you're going to be hearing songs from throughout the game, all of which are quite cool, so I hope you like them. So I suppose I should probably go a little bit more into the Mask of the Legendary Wrestler card set, as that's what we're in at present. Basically, each card represents exactly the same thing, it's just the mask of a popular legendary Lucha Libre wrestler. And there are 50 cards in this set. You get cards 1 through 5 from the Townsend Residents, so rank 1. So that's El Extremo, La Guerra Junior, La Verdad, Tres Estrella, and Superfuerza. I apologise if I absolutely butcher all of these names, or sound ever so slightly racist for trying to potentially add a slight Mexican-Spanish wrestlery tone to them. Because that's technically how you're meant to say them, but it just sounds completely wrong coming from the voice of someone who actually does not give a damn about wrestling. So, yes. You get cards 6 through 10 at Destroy Stadium, fighting Dr. Peace. So that's Ultimo Vuelo, La Cruz Jr., La Oscuridad, and El Bosque. You get 11 through 15 at Santa Destroy High School, so fighting Shinobu, with El Salvaje, Samurai Gato, La Mariposa, Ultimateness, and Venganza. You get 16 through 20 from Bear Hug Film Studio, so El Colmio, Caballero 1 and Caballero 2, Ascasco, and La Plata. You get 21 through 25 at Body Slam Beach, so Holly Summers, and that is Saltamontes, Victoria Rojo, Victoria Azul, Terremoto, and El Fuego. You get 26 through 30 in the Scent and Splash Tunnel, so when you go to fight Let's Shake, that's Muerte 00, Muerte 99, El Marino Jr., and Ex Queno. You get 31 through 35 at Bow and Arrow Station, so that is going to... oh gosh, who is that going to face down? Oh yes, Harvey, of course. And that is Luz de la Luna, El Infierno, El Fantasma. I don't know what the LMR means, but Sumo, and El Conejo. You get 36 through 40 from Speed City, so Speedbuster, AMO, El Agua, La Sangre, El Jeff, and El Trueno. 41 through 45 at Stadium Basement, so Bad Girl, that's El Busto, La Tierra, La Flor, El Sol, and La Lluvia, whatever. You get Super Batalas at Santa Destroy Junction, so I'm not quite sure where that appears, but I'm sure you'll find it. And the last 4 are found in the Forest of Bewilderment, so La Reina, El Rey, Sangre Tigre, and Loco Tigre. And now we get into all of the design materials, which is concept art of the bosses, their weapons, just everything really. And it's glorious. So obviously Orange Computer taking the mickey out of Apple. And there's also some interesting little facts that appear kind of in the little description thing, which it's awesome. Now if you want to see all of this stuff close up without me, or at least sort of close up without me kind of speeding through it all, then go on to the No More Heroes Wikia, and they have everything there, which will be a great help to you in just looking at stuff. Basically the way it works, as you have seen, we've been unlocking all of these throughout the main story. So you get 51 through 54, plus I think it was, yeah, like 136 at Townsend Residence. You get like 4 within the level that relate to the boss design, boss expressions, boss weapon, maybe something else. Sometimes there's 3, sometimes there's more. It varies. And then you get one which is like a proper render, which we will see towards the end. And there are 100 cards in this pack. Yeah, there's a lot of this to go through. This is basically why the entire part is half an hour long. I apologise for that in terms of its length, but nobody else is exactly going to show this off to you. At least I don't think they will. So I want to be different, goddammit. Show you what I worked so hard to unlock. Because while it was sort of pretty easy to find all the stuff in the levels, doing that hunt around Santa Destroy to get all of those trading cards was just appallingly ridiculous. Now, I believe that technically you cannot find buried treasure, or at least it's nigh on impossible to find buried treasure without the accelerator that can be purchased from Naomi's lab. Basically, it is an item that, basically vibrates the Wiimote in your hand whenever you cross over where buried treasure is. What's really frustrating is that the vibrations are very, very light, or at least if there's a way of increasing the vibration strength, I never really found it, or at least didn't care to find it and just didn't look carefully enough. But either way, it gets very dodgy because even when the thing vibrates intensely, sometimes you're not facing quite the right direction, and then you can just as easily lose the vibrations and therefore your place. So doing the hunt becomes sometimes very, very frustrating. So even though without the accelerator it's even worse trial and error, it's pretty bad even with it. Also, there's a really lovely close-up look at Let's Shake's Virtual Boy helmet, and also you can see the controller on his arm, which is just great. And fun story, I actually got to try out a Virtual Boy, because in my hometown, they, a couple of months ago now, opened up a National Video Game Arcade. Basically have loads of stuff in there, old and new. They have arcade cabinets, they have brand new consoles, they have all sorts of games there, as well as, like, creating your own games, and it's glorious. But there's one bit which is, like, some of the proper old stuff, and they have a Virtual Boy in there, and I actually got to play on it, and oh boy, I can tell why it was not popular. Because it's nauseating. Because it's just because of the whole having your eyes blocked up and trying to control stuff with the controller, and it's not exactly fully responsive, and all of that. It's pretty amazing to think that I've actually got to experience that. And if ever you are in Nottingham, I certainly will say, go visit the National Video Game Arcade, because it's amazing. And also, I should point out, here with the Speed Buster stuff, you actually get to see every step of the transformation of the Buster launcher, which makes it much more clear, both in the fact that it describes the process as well, but also visually, that it goes from an egg to a chick to a chicken, and that's just quite awesome. Now, I really do love that this is here. It's something that I pretty much, every single game I play, I absolutely adore it when there are things of concept art. And I especially like that you're able to zoom in and range around the art, because as you probably will have seen in, like, my Tomb Raider walkthroughs, that's not something they allow. And that just gets incredibly frustrating, because sometimes you just want to zoom in on this stuff and see exactly what's going on and see the intricacies of the art, which generally you only ever get in an art book. And not every game gets an art book, so it's brilliant to have in-game concept art galleries to get a look at this stuff, because it's always fascinating to see where the characters and stuff began. Or at least some early forms of them. And also to see sometimes how in-depth the developers were thinking with, well, in relation to the construction of certain elements. So the fact that you've got concept art for every single stage of the Buster launcher is amazing. The fact that you can see the inside of the cross sword, it's just really awesome. And I mean, when we look at Thunder Ryu's weapon, that is also a very cool, very in-depth description of the weapon, because DOS, it's a sword that, when removed from its scabbard, remains constantly on, and that will be explained in the description here. Also, something I've just noticed about Thunder Ryu's face is that it's basically the Smash logo. His scar is literally Smash Brothers. That is glorious. Because it's the two kind of lines. It's a very hard thing to describe, but if you look at it, it's just, well, it's a flipped version of the Smash Brothers logo. Now, if you are playing Heroes Paradise, I believe that there is a model gallery available to you, which is also pretty glorious, and to be perfectly honest, I love it when there are model galleries as well, because sometimes you just want to see more of what's going on, but that doesn't always take place. So I suppose now is probably as good a time as any to discuss pretty much all the changes that occurred in the port to Heroes Paradise. Although I should also point out that there was a further re-release, which is No More Heroes Red Zone Edition, which was just a port of the Western PS3 version of Heroes Paradise, I think, because they added in PlayStation Move support. So, the main differences are that Anarchy in the Galaxy slots saved from previous ranked matches can be carried over to future battles, or they can be removed at the end of a ranked fight for money, so you get an option of what to do with them. There is Very Sweet Mode, which, as I said, is the mode unlocked after completing the game, that basically puts all of the female characters in much more provocative clothing, and by provocative I just mean there is generally a lot less clothing and it's all sluttier. There is Viewer Mode, which allows you to rewatch cutscenes, which is something that I think so many of these types of games should do, because half the fun is watching the cutscenes, and sometimes you just want a nice, quick route into watching those cutscenes within the game. And, I mean, for anybody who wants to make, like, music videos with the cutscenes, or an introduction video for a walkthrough or something with the cutscenes, that type of thing is an absolute godsend, but also it's sometimes just really fun just to watch the story. There's also Rebout Mode, which allows you to replay just the ranked matches, which is pretty awesome, and to be perfectly honest, it kind of makes the rest of the game completely redundant, but oh well. Also, in the Japanese version, at the end of the credits, the real ending, instead of Sylvia saying, "I know, too bad there won't be a sequel," she says, "I know, can't wait for the sequel," because Heroes Paradise actually released before No More Heroes Desperate Struggle in Japan. Which is bonkers, because then Desperate Struggle, I believe, came out before Heroes Paradise ever made it west. Which is insane. It also has dream battles with bosses from No More Heroes 2, those being Skelter Helter, Nathan Copeland, Kimmy Howell, Matt Helms and Alice Twilight, which kind of ends up taking the mystery out of their fights then in the sequel, which is a bit naff if you ask me. There's also trophies and DLC such as new beam katanas and bike skins, not really much point. There are high definition graphics, which I have to say I don't think actually look as good as the Wii graphics. There's something about adding extra definition to this world that just doesn't work. Part of its kind of appeal is from its cel-shadedness, and it really doesn't transition well into high def. They introduced Japanese voice acting in the Asian territories. There's also the ability to warp straight to any side job or assassin mission once the player has beaten any of them at least once, which that's actually quite cool. There's a retry option added to side jobs, assassination missions and free fights, but it only appears when the player has failed in kind of any of them, which it's a nice thing to improve. There are also 5 new side jobs added: signalling, sign spinning, kitty race, buster coconut and people bowling, and 5 new assassination missions: guard break, power down battle, big bang anarchy, shortcake freaks and crowded train carnage. And they also added a score attack mode that lets you refight all 15 of the game's bosses and compete for a high score online. It's also the only way for players to refight all of the No More Heroes 2 extras, as they don't appear in a nightmare mode, which I think is another difficulty or something else. So yeah, they added a lot of stuff to Heroes Paradise. So technically you would think that it is the definitive edition of the game, especially considering in all regions it's the one that has all of the blood and guts and gore, so it's the uncensored version. But I don't know, there's just, well, I think the primary problem that a lot of people had with Heroes Paradise is that the controls are jankier and don't work as well as the Wii version, and the game just doesn't run as well as the Wii version. And that's ridiculous, considering the other consoles are much more powerful, but it's much less consistent, I think, than the Wii version, so it just does not feel as good to play. And really, that is what you want in this type of game. You want it to feel good. That's why I have so much fun playing this game, because it feels good. And as much as some of those extras are actually very wonderful additions, really, if you package all of that with a version of the game that doesn't play as well, they end up being a bit pointless. And the dream battles with the No More Heroes 2 bosses are also a bit pointless, because if you then want to go on to play the sequel, you've basically played nearly half the bosses, which is a bit naff. Then obviously there's the fact that the HD graphics aren't great. I have to say I disagree with the premise of the Very Sweet mode, because it's making the game start to fall in line with the very ideology that it's taking the piss out of. And yeah, also, this is the version of the game that has Heavenly Star in it, so I will happily go with that. Speaking of Heavenly Star, if you're playing, I think it's the North American version of the game, I think it's stated that you actually do not have access to the video for Heavenly Star in your version of the game. That is actually only available in the PAL and Japanese releases, which is sad, because Heavenly Star is a wonderful, wonderful video, and while I would happily show you it, and in fact I will be kind of clicking on that option in the, well, right at the end of this video, I think, if my memory serves me correctly. I won't be showing you the whole video because copyright and all that jazz. However, what I will do is I will place a link to the Heavenly Star video, either in some form of annotation, or, which is much more likely, in the description, because it's something that I feel you should definitely watch, because it's wonderful, it's happy, it's cheesy, I don't care, it's just brilliant, and I love it. And it's the reason that I fell in love with the Genki Rockets. And I feel really bad that everyone in America didn't get to experience that. Instead they got, I think it was a trailer for Heroes, which is obviously that superhero TV series, which I think I only got into like right at the last series, and that was when it was rubbish. So yeah, that was slightly hilarious. I feel I should probably go back and watch the early series at some point, but oh well. Also, look at the little kitty! Oh, she's adorable. It's something that will easily make anybody happy. To show them a cute picture of a cat, they'll just fall and just go, oh, and you'll have won. Now you may be wondering what this music is, because you haven't heard it yet at all. Well, this is actually the credits music for the normal ending, which you will be seeing right at the end of these extras. I just felt that it worked here as a nice kind of rousing finale to going through all these trading cards and concept art. I hope I've managed to somewhat entertain you whilst you've been looking at all of this stuff. And I should also point out that what's really awesome here is that it gives you the names of the characters where they have them or not using pseudonyms, gives you their age, and also a little background, which is glorious. Because you don't normally get stuff like this. And I just think it's great. But also, you may think that there's something oddly familiar about this music. That it's got some sort of Star Wars edge to it, and you would be most certainly correct in thinking that, because on the soundtrack it's titled Staff Wars 1, or I think it's Staff Wars Episode 1. And when you actually get to see the credits that it goes alongside, so much Star Wars. So much major Star Wars, it's unreal. Yeah, Staff Wars Episode 1, there it is. But we are also going to get to experience a full version of The Virgin Child Makes Her Wish Without Feeling Anything, which, as you should all be aware already, I think is great. But oh my god, when you listen to the lyrics, it's terrifying. It's just, oh my god. I hear the rising phoenix in my dreams, and the virgin child made her wish upon a star. That night her mother talks no more. It's all about death. Cape of Hope, the end of the dream. A shiny fish splashes in a stream, and the virgin child loses her heart and soul. That night her mother's eyes see no more. When the wind blows, the virgin child's corpse sings a song, such a pretty melody never heard before. No more lullabies. The virgin child smiles from hell. Yes, how dark is that? It's unreal. And you don't realise it when you're listening to the lyric, well, when you're listening to the song, but it's just like, oh my god. Now, if you want to play the Pure White love a glassed and breathing imagy video game that you played during Harvey's level, then you can play it here at the TV, and that is where you would be able to watch the Heavenly Star music video as well. If you want to watch the entire thing, feel free to, I will provide a link, and you should enjoy it. But that brings us to the end of everything in Travis's room, all the trading cards. It's time to move on to the next part of the extras. See you then.